Okay. So you're hip and you know what's going on in the world today. So you probably already know this, but
Yeah.
Billy McFarland of Firefest fame is back selling tickets for Fire 2, which will be in, I believe, Quintana Roo, Mexico. And I wanted to know how much you paid for your ticket, because I know you were first in line for Firefest 2.
You lost me at McFarland. I don't know anything about all of this. I am shocked and surprised that he's. I mean, is this really going to happen? Are we going to get like half sandwiches again and all that stuff?
I saw the announcement on it and I'm like, there's no way, because obviously there was 2 documentaries on how horrible it was, like way worse than whatever Woodstock 99. Like it was terrible.
Right.
And now they're actually going to do. And here's the thing. The prices, said prices, are going between $1,400 a ticket and $1.1 million, which I'm like, what? Can't be real. That can't be. I mean, Ja Rule is not going to buy all the tickets. So it's like, I don't know. I didn't
Ja
know.
Rule can afford a ticket these days.
We should do a live This Old Marketing from Firefest 2.
I'm in. You'll pay for my ticket?
I'm going to do mine from Key West.
Silence is deafening.
I will pay for you to go to Quintana Roo, Mexico, and we'll do it that way.
Okay. I like it.
Just remember, everybody has your story to tell. Tell it well. Of This Old Marketing.
And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to This Old Marketing, proudly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. And yeah, I'm Robert Rose. Welcome to episode number 469. Keep your jokes in your pocket for Friday, February 28th, the end of February. It's hard to believe, 2025. And with me, as usual, my pal, my colleague, and his last week in Key West, a guy who can't list 5 things that he did last week, Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
Yeah, I know. We talked before the program started how melancholy I am because I'm leaving the beautiful vibe in Key West, which is like nowhere else. I've been in a little informational bubble.
Yeah, which
is kind of a nice. I got to tell you.
Did you get the joke? Did you even understand the joke?
Nope, okay. Not at all. Like I don't get your Star Trek metaphor stuff, and I don't get. Okay, so tell me, what did I miss?
Well, it's the last. So basically, there was an email that went out last week with Monday as the deadline from our friend Elon Musk, who basically sent an email to every single government employee out there that basically said, you have to tell us 5 things that you did last week. And if you don't respond to this email, it's considered a resignation. So it was quite the controversy last week, as different groups, the FBI in particular, and one other group, I think Homeland Security, basically said, yeah, don't respond to this. So ultimately at the end of the week, it was very unclear whether or not anything would come of it if you didn't respond or whatever. But it's all just part of the circus. It's all just part of the circus that is now our U.S. government.
Is there and this serious question, is there a management style or a leadership style book by Elon Musk that is out there? Like, has somebody done this? Like Musk leadership or on how?
I don't think so. I mean, there's this project something or other. It seems to be pretty hard to center. I don't think so. I mean, it's ostensibly what he did at Twitter. I mean, he basically it's the same playbook that he did at Twitter, which hey, that's gone so well. And so it's really just look, politics aside, the business strategy of this, if the whole goal here is to make government more like business, which is itself a stupid idea, but let's just put that aside for the moment and say, if your objective is to make it run more like business, this is exactly the wrong business decisions to go, from a messaging standpoint, from a content standpoint, from a business decision standpoint, from a strategy standpoint. This is just really bad, like just really just ineffective. And so that's the part where you can just go, it's the circus.
It's interesting just to contrast that with that. I don't know if you've listened to the Diary of a CEO interview with Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast. Did you happen to catch this one?
I'm not. No, I'm not.
I know you're not.
I'm not a Mr. Beast fan, but
I know you're. I know. I totally get that. But honestly, what's interesting is, and Prof G mentioned this. Stephen Bartlett, I think, is the name of the gentleman that does Diary of a CEO. He's become, almost the new Joe Rogan, it seems. But anyway, regardless, I was listening to it the other day, and Mr. Beast, Jimmy Donaldson, was talking about how the first year, he and his team will give everything to an employee because they want that person to stay for 10 years. They want 1 year of investment and 9 years of dividends. And they said they will give everything to that employee for them to be successful. And then they're like, okay, like we want you to stay long. We will pay you more. We will do everything for you. And it's an interesting type of leadership style versus what have you done for me lately? Yeah. And if I don't like your response, out the door you go. I can't imagine you and I both know people that work in the government and how freaked out they are right now because of, you basically, how would you feel if you had to wake up every day knowing, do I have a job today? Right. Like, what do I do? Do I go into work? Do I not? Right. I'm a little concerned for our country from that standpoint, where you have the people who are serving it and have served it well for so many years.
Exactly, because it's not the bad people that are going to, or the ineffective people, probably a better way to say it, that are going to leave. Right? You know what I mean? It's the good people that are going to leave.
That's exactly right. The ones with options.
Right.
And those are generally the A players.
Exactly.
So it's like if you were going to create a book about how to be a C player, well, no, we could talk about that. That'd be a different conversation to have. Which, by the way, would be an excellent book because I could write that book. It's like I could say, all right, you want to know how to be a C player? Here you go.
Yeah.
These are all things. Anyways, how was your you went traveling?
I did go traveling. Yes, I went to Chicago for literally 18 hours. So it was a very, very short in and out to Chicago. But boy, first of all, the weather was, you go, ooh, February in Chicago. That's just absolutely nuts, but it was spectacular. The weather was just absolutely,
really?
Yeah. I was actually quite bummed that I didn't get a chance to sort of enjoy it more, mid 50s and
that's wonderful.
Sunshine and no wind, and it was a lovely
time. The week before it was -20, so you got
that's right.
The 55 degree. Of course, you're the luck of the rose, luck of the rose,
the luck of the rose, and Chicago, which is just such a great city. I love that city so much, and so I had a great workshop. Ended up teaching a copywriting workshop to a bunch of marketing writers and marketing teams. And you talk about investing in the institutional value of the team. This is a company that really understands that, and was sort of training up their writers and marketers, and had really just a great group and really a fun time. And it's a new workshop for me, so it was always fun to test that out.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like something different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. It's basically, what I'm seeing now, of course, a lot in content marketing is that a lot of people who were hired in as content marketers, they're great writers. They're for long form fiction, journalism, they come from that world, right? They come from the world of editorial, of journalism, et cetera. And so they really understand how to construct a story and how to construct long form content that actually engages and all of that. But what they sometimes lack is some of the marketing best practices of copywriting, right? And copywriting is a bit of a too broad a term, but it's basically marketing that is meant to persuade or convince or, in some ways convert. And so that's what they were really beefing their skills up on, was sort of the short form copywriting, headline writing, subject line writing, those sorts of things. And I love doing that. So it was
that's
really
great.
Fun to go in. Yeah, it was a good
That's
workshop.
awesome.
It was fun. Yeah.
Speaking of writers, I haven't told anybody this story, and it was fantastic. And I hope it's true. But the other day, I'm out with my beautiful wife, and we go to a great restaurant here called Bob's on Margaret. It's like between two houses. You'd never know it was a restaurant. We go in there, we sit at a place setting for two, and right across from us are two women. And I get a text from Pam, who's right across from me, and she's like, check your phone. And look at it. And she's like, Judy Blume. So she's like,
no.
And then I'm like,
how does she recognize Judy Blume? I mean,
well,
that's the most so oddly specific.
We pass by her bookstore every day. We're 4 blocks from Judy Blume's bookstore. It's called Books and More. It's right on Simonton and Eaton, and we've been staying on Eaton for the last 3.5 weeks. Yeah. So we see her face every day, and sometimes apparently Judy Blume works in. So she still lives in Key West, and I looked and I'm like, oh, I think it is. And then they got up and left, but I'm like, I didn't. You don't want to say excuse me. We didn't. We didn't. Probably should have, but anyways,
isn't that Hello God, It's Me, Margaret? Is that the right book?
I think that is. I'm not a Judy Blume expert, but what was so funny is that there's random books around this house that we're staying in, and one of them's a Judy Blume book. And literally, like an hour before we went out, Pam just finished a Judy Blume book. So I was like, "That's just so weird." I said it's kismet.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. Judy Blume sighting.
I'm just like, you'll only find that on This Old Marketing. This is the expertise that you get on this.
This is the hard hitting news that you're going to find here.
I have an announcement
in Key West.
No, here's a big announcement. I'm starting a new podcast. What did Joe see this week? And that's so it's going to be this. Yeah. Anyways, so like,
I'm sure Galloway is coming out with that. I mean, of his 900 new podcasts, I'm sure Galloway's out there with like, ooh, I got a new one. What did the dog see this week? You know?
Oh my God, that's a good impression.
I'm getting my doubt.
Is the dog? Feed the dog. I gotta say though, for those people, just little strategic discussion. I've listened to Prop G Markets. I've been listening to it since they started that podcast.
It's great. It's a great podcast. It's his best.
It's a great podcast. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the newsletter because they create basically if you opted in to Scott Galloway's email, you got automatically subscribed to the Prop G Markets. You could opt out, but you got that. And I don't like it because it basically gives away the entire podcast episode. So I end up not looking at the email because I want to listen to the podcast. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I'm like, I don't know.
I don't look at the email. I only listen to the podcast, and I don't love his other ones. I don't.
You don't love the Raging Moderates and
I see where he's going with that, but I just don't. I don't love it.
You don't like Kara Swisher?
Oh, I love Kara. No, Pivot is great. I mean, but Pivot's
you like
not
that
his
one.
Podcast. It's Pivot's podcast, and he's just the co-host on it. So
Pivot's
Pivot's probably my favorite podcast.
Yeah, Kara Swisher. She's pretty awesome.
They're awesome the way they cover stuff.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, hey, do we cover anything? Yeah. Should we cover something?
We should cover some stuff. So we are going to talk about a few things today, the news that broke in the world of media and marketing. The first thing we'll talk about is how Dow Jones has now expanded their AI content marketplace to more than 5,000 publishers. What might that mean for B2B marketers or other types of publications that could start to monetize in a similar way? Then we'll talk about B2B That event is happening this week, actually, as we speak. And the keynote speakers have revealed the keys to content marketing and some interesting reports coming out of B2B and Joe and I will talk about whether we agree or disagree with some of the things that are coming out of that event. Then we'll talk about, is Substack the new Instagram? Fascinating article that we'll just warn you ahead, is gated, but we'll have to go through and just talk a little bit about that. Boo is exactly right. Then we'll get to our winners and losers. I'm going to point out a winner with Levi's and also with UTC. That is not a disease. That is actually a talent agency here in Los Angeles. And we'll talk about how they've expanded their footprint into the entertainment marketing division and maybe competing with agencies near you. Then Joe's going to talk about the bars in Key West because he's been really paying attention to business these days.
Hey, talk about what you know. I know a lot about the bars in Key West. I'll tell you that.
He is living the dream that you are not your target market. Yeah. So there you have it. Then we'll get to rants and raves, and I am going to rant a little bit about Jeff Bezos and his latest actions with the Washington Post, and also we'll talk about X. And their negotiation tactics with advertisers. And Forrester actually chimed in this week with some advice, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then Joe is going to give some commentary on MSNBC's move. Lots of news media moves this week, and what they've been doing and seemingly where they are pivoting. So
you cannot say NBC without going NBC. You just can't do it. You
can't. MSNBC
and NBC.
NBC.
Paul Giamatti.
That's Paul
great
Giamatti.
Role. Kind of his coming out role. He was awesome in that. And what was the one that he was just in? The Leftovers.
The Leftovers.
So good.
That was
so
really
good.
Fun. He's
so
just
good
really
in that.
Great. Yeah, he's so much fun.
He's something else. Yeah.
He
okay.
Is so much fun. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this first story here, which comes courtesy of Axios, becoming sort of my go-to newspaper, by the way. Axios, Dow Jones expands AI marketplace to nearly 5,000 publishers. The article opens up by saying Dow Jones, the parent company of the Wall Street Journal, has quietly built in an AI marketplace for publishers to license their content to corporations. Dow Jones CEO and Wall Street Journal publisher Almar Latour told Axios in an interview on Monday. The initiative, which sits under Dow Jones's business information and research company, Factiva, now has nearly 5,000 publishing partners, up from nearly 4,000 in November and 2,000 6 months ago. So they're going all in on this thing. It launched a generative AI product called Smart Summary, which allows corporations to create short, informative summaries from a pool of Factiva's trusted content partners. These summaries are fully transparent, traceable, which makes it easy for Factiva to attribute them to thousands of trusted news publishing partners and compensate them accordingly. And then for now, Dow Jones doesn't work with any AI companies for licensing the publisher's material, but you can see that it's something that it might eye for the future. That's coming. It could also be, and this is just me now inserting my own editorial here, that it could be building their own. I could see them very much building their own. As we've discovered, it is not entirely a huge moat to actually build your own LLM, your own frontier model, as DeepSeek has now taught us. Anyway, Dow Jones is one of several companies working to build marketplaces that can help publishers get compensated for their work. Tollbit is a two-sided marketplace. ProRata has built its own search engine, and Verify, a blockchain platform. Okay, there we go. Blockchain platform that helps media companies track how their content is being used online. So this is a fascinating thing to me. I mean, I'll give you my quick take, and then I would love yours,
sure.
Which is when we see this. When I see Dow Jones going all in on this, this tells me that they are seeing early success with this and a way to monetize. So the easiest way to think about this is that you've got this big corpus of content across 5,000 publishers. And it's like, okay, we used to monetize all that content by how much people would get eyeballs on it. And that's nice. But with that much content, that huge, that depth, that level of history, a lot of that stuff is just better served in a search for very specific niche oriented needs than it is in sort of a, how much is that 1982 or 2005 article on the trends in the manufacturing industry? How much is that ever going to get eyeballs, except for those very niche situations where you're writing a research paper or you're writing an article that has to dive into the history of things, and you're looking for those things. And we would normally use Google for all of that. But now increasingly what we're doing is we're using tools like AI deep search or Claude and Gemini and its deep search capabilities. And we're sort of saying, hey, go back through the corpus, et cetera. Now there's some value, and I've personally experienced this in my use of specifically Gemini's deep research and OpenAI's deep research, in that what tends to happen in those situations is that because there's not a lot of control by Google and or OpenAI to structure that content in a very interesting way, it tends to get a lot of stuff wrong. The citation is wrong. It just doesn't understand how to, what the actual context of that, of that article is. Is it within the context of an article that is basically talking about how the trend is bad, but the numbers might look good, or where the numbers might look good, but the trend is bad, all those kinds of things. And I think it's really interesting that if you take a group that has that level of depth of content, like a Factiva, basically helping us build our own little Bloomberg terminals, if you will, to get really deep research. That's a fascinating way to start to monetize this stuff, because you wall it off into its own walled garden. You make people pay either for the licensing and access to it. In other words, you have to actually license it to use it, or you just pay a fee for people to subscribe to it or have access to it, et cetera. I think it's a brilliant move. And I could see more and more a trend here where, wouldn't it be interesting to get a bunch of B2B companies together in a particular industry, like if you're in manufacturing or financial services or that sort of thing, because there's so much valuable, good information in B2B content marketing troves, and put together, a very niche oriented, topical, very focused topical LLM on this, and license it out and subscribe to it. Like, I would, if there was something out there that really had the highest quality of marketing journals from the, going all the way back in history from the AMA, or deep level research into the world of marketing from Ad Age and from some of those sort of quality publishers. And it was only that, like, I'm going to get rid of all the garbage. Yeah. Well, I would totally buy a subscription to that for my research purposes. So anyway, I think it's a brilliant move. No, you're not wrong. It makes me think of back in the day when VerticalNet launched. I mean, if you remember, we're so old. We're so old. Yeah. Oh my God. So Google launches, and then some people complain because there's not enough specific things, especially for B2B. And companies, including the likes of VerticalNet, say, hey, no, we are going to give you search just from these sites, just from this trove of data. And then you just get that search. And actually, it worked quite well for a couple of years before Google just overpowered everything, and then they became vertical search too. But now you're saying maybe this is what vertical net or vertical search should have been, because now I'm just like, no, I want these 6 sources, and I want you to go all the way back and give me everything. And then from that, you get an answer, because you're figuring that the Claudes of the world or the Geminis of the world are not going to go so deep in all these underserved areas, right? That's why vertical search became a thing. That's so right. I think from a monetization standpoint, from a customer service chat standpoint, we've already seen that happen with a number of AI agents there. So there are business models there. I think you're talking just specifically publishing because of the Dow Jones example, which is right. But I think there are a lot of other ways that we could use that for just plain old research. Yeah, you would subscribe to something. I want the Harvard Business Review database. Right. Plus 3 other add-ons at my disposal because I want all that intelligence. I mean, people would absolutely pay for that. And I'm sure they're thinking about that. Maybe. And the key there that you said that's so important to remember is that one of the reasons that they limited it, right, in VerticalNet, and one of the weaknesses of it was search itself. In other words, if you had all this information in VerticalNet, and let's say you had more than 20, you had, 5,000 or 10,000, sources of content in there. Think about the way that you think about search, right? The classic internet or database search, which gives you a ranking. And so the answer that you're looking for may not rank that well because it's one fact buried inside of an article that is, doesn't rank well for the keywords that you're searching for. Mm-hmm. But it could be the golden fact that you're actually looking for. And so it might be item number, 72 in your search query, but you're sort of having to page through all that stuff, and it's not good because you have to go look at it and then click through and see what's going on with it, and then so it becomes very time intensive. But if you have an AI sort of search where what you're looking for are the specific answers, like you don't care about browsing through 72 documents. What you care about is pulling forward the relevant facts into a contextual answer, and that's what AI is really good at. Now, all of a sudden, you're talking about a different use case. And that's where I think this is so strong, is that when you start talking about a walled garden of very specific, deep level research, and, whether it's healthcare and medical advice,
Sure.
I mean, and all that kind of stuff, now all of a sudden you're really, I have to imagine, for example, Cleveland Clinic is thinking about this, right? Because
Absolutely.
Cleveland Clinic and their history of amazing content, well vetted, well documented, well cited information and content that they have on their Health Essentials blog now becomes a completely monetizable, sort of knowledge base, if you will, for even better than, say, a WebMD or something like that, because now I can just get the answer. I don't have to browse through 100 articles on diabetes. I just get the answer that I'm looking for.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Like when I told you about that Chris Sacca interview with Tim Ferriss, and he was talking about, do you want one doctor's interpretation of your scan, or do you want 1 million doctors coming all together and looking at that, and immediately that's the answer. The preponderance of data tells you. But I like limiting the scope of data. I don't know if it's true, but the possibility of it giving you a better answer because you limit the parameters of the data set. That seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, it seems to make sense to me too. I mean, I don't understand enough about the technical aspects to know if that would reduce hallucinations or not. It feels like it would. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you're limiting. I mean, part of the reason for hallucinations are because of all of the diversity of data that you're looking at. So if you're talking about something that's extraordinarily well covered as a topic, with garbage, with almost garbage, with really great stuff, and with really excellent stuff, well, it's going to mix all that together and sort of say, well, 32% say this, 73% say this. I probably should include the wrong stuff because I need to make sure that it's 70-30 mixed, right? So you start to get now I'm totally making up stuff that I know nothing about, right? The way that LLMs work and the way that AI works. But it seems to me that it would be a way to maintain quality.
Well, you have a great point, because even when I was using Claude and ChatGPT for some travel stuff, and I'm like, getting all these recommendations and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, how did they come up with that? And I'm digging in. I'm like, okay, what's the source? And it's like Bob's travel blog.
Right.
And I'm like, why Bob's travel blog? Like, why that one? And I look at it, it's like, that's not like a very well-known site. It's like, I don't understand why that one was favored over the other ones. So it's not quite there yet, because Bob doesn't know everything.
When I launched Bob Travel's blog a number of years ago, I'm trying to just serve you.
You're the Bob.
I am the Bob. I am the Bob. I am the Bob. It's like the When Harry Met Sally scene. Who's the dog? Am I the dog? Yes, you are the dog. Okay.
That's just funny. Like whenever we're together and somebody comes up and say, "Hey, Rob," I'm like, "Oh, that's a different relationship from back in the." That's
exactly how long you've known
before content marketing.
Yeah. That's it. Speaking of content marketing, we should probably pay a couple of bills here so that we can keep this thing going.
Might be a good thing.
Do you feel like your leads never lead anywhere, and you're making content that no one sees, and it takes forever to build a campaign? Well, that's why we built HubSpot. It's an AI-powered customer platform that builds campaigns for you, tells you which leads are worth knowing, and makes writing blogs, creating videos, and posting on social a breeze. So now, it's easier than ever to be a marketer. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Are you ready to do the hustle? No, that's not a 1970s reference. What I mean is a great podcast. It's the Hustle and Flowchart podcast with Joe Fear, and it's all about how to build a business so it gives you the freedom and fuel for your life. Join Joe as he discusses systems, mindset tweaks, reframes, and strategies for entrepreneurs, and really anyone, to enjoy the process of being in business and having fun. This isn't for the entrepreneur looking to build $1 billion business, rather, somebody who's looking to build systems that work. You can find the Hustle and Flowchart podcast wherever you follow your favorite pods.
When are you coming out with your Robert's AI hits?
The greatest hits.
Album. Greatest hits.
Greatest hits of PNR,
why not?
The greatest hits of this old market.
We've created worse things. We might as well. Like we should brainstorm. Like, what's the worst content product we could create?
Oh, that's funny. That's good comedy right there.
Like I thought. Remember, this is back. I don't know. Like during COVID when I was
this is still a good idea. I know where you're going with this, and this is still a good idea.
We were going to do an marketing album. Yeah. Like a Rhapsody type of thing.
Yeah. It's still a good idea. I still maintain that that's a good idea.
I actually wrote some lyrics for it. I wrote some lyrics like behind some Jay-Z raps.
Yeah.
But for marketing that nobody ever should listen to. But it would be funny. If you want that kind of thing, let us know. Go to thisoldmarketing.com. Put it in the comments.
Yeah, I like it. I think
here's what I want. I want somebody to comment. I know we get some really good comments, but I want somebody to use that commenting tool at thisoldmarketing.com rather than, hey, I love your show, Joe and Robert. I have a great idea for a guest, and it's this person. It's like you don't love the show because
2 of those a week. Yeah, I get 2 of those a week for sure.
We get probably 3 a day coming in like right now. So it's just like oh, I loved your last episode. I'm really getting into and of course you want this as a guest, and like they're not listening because we don't have guests.
How I've been responding to those.
Oh, in emojis.
No. I respond and I go, thank you so much. I would love for you to go back through every episode and tell me which your guest is like the most so that we get a sense of the context. So if you can go do that for me and then come back and let me know which episode, it would be fantastic.
Dumb. That's so mean. That's mean. Why even respond?
That's not mean. If you're gonna hit us up without even listening to the show, then you deserve everything you're going to get. So
they just got a big old list of stuff, and they've got
I know it's some
just
PR
fill in the
gaps, just checking boxes. I get it, but yeah. Anyway, all right. So let's move on here to a story that comes to us courtesy of Demand Gen Report, which is also the host of the B2B MX event. Good event, by the way. It's a good event. I've been there.
Have you been there?
I've spoken once.
Okay.
I've never gotten another invite, so I'm just going to take that as I was off.
You just topped it. You can't do any better than that. Yeah.
That's right. Well, no. They can definitely do better than me. And clearly have. So the article opens up by saying day 2 of B2B MX featured 3. It's all about content marketing, by the way. The headline here is the new keys to content marketing, according to the keynote speakers at B2B MX. And they basically go through 3 keynote addresses, all of them, as the article opens up, jam-packed with invaluable insights and tactical takeaways to support B2B marketing and sales teams. Demand Gen Report pinpointed 5 breakout quotes from these sessions and explored their alignment to recurring themes and pain points. And they end up quoting Neil Patel, who, of course, is, everywhere. I think there's 5 of these.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's so there's from NP Digital, of course.
He was when I was out speaking in Italy. He was there. I was like, hey, what are you doing here? It's like everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah. Did he speak with you?
He spoke the next day. I was keynote on day 1, and he was keynote on day.
Did he speak to you? Did he actually acknowledge?
I went up to him and I said, Neil, I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? And I don't think he knew me from Adam, but he was very nice and cordial. So
there you go. All right.
Go. He's like, who? Content marketing? What?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then they quote Phyllis Davidson from Forrester, Lindsay. I'm not even going to attempt Lindsay's last name.
Buckingham.
Yeah, there you go. From Casted. And then basically another quote from Neil Patel, because of course there's 5 of Neil Patel, so they can get him in twice. Yeah. So anyway, some of the interesting things here, and I would love to get your take on it in terms of the keys of content marketing, just for us to discuss. So Lindsay Buckingham, basically, she of the podcasting platform Casted, by the way, shared her BRAVE framework, BRAV framework for the audience. The difference is brave. The mindset of breaking through was the theme of her presentation. And she explained that brands like Salesforce, Apple, HubSpot break barriers, build bridges, not by following others' playbooks, by creating their own. And to reach their legendary status, teams need to make hundreds of tiny brave decisions over time. I don't know that there's a lot there to get your head around, but what do you think about that in terms of one of the keys to content marketing is sort of having your team sort of make brave decisions and I guess not follow others' playbooks? I mean, is that the advice, I suppose?
Well, I will talk about it a little bit later. I'm going to talk about differentiation. That, I mean, more critical than ever is how you stand out with all this content crap running all over. So from that standpoint, here's the thing. None of those companies that you mentioned, I got to watch my tongue here. There's been a couple of content marketing awards in that group, but I wouldn't say that those companies are standout content marketing examples. They have very large budgets. They do
Salesforce is the one exception to that.
Salesforce is they've done some cool things, but I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, Salesforce spends so much more on advertising.
Yes.
Most of those examples, and that's why content marketing is really becoming more of a smaller business play, because the larger companies literally seem to be spending way more on advertising and traditional marketing than they are on the content marketing side. Now, that's not a new thing. They've been doing that forever. But I think that just to answer your question is, yes, how are we going to differentiate when everybody's talking about the same thing and it happens so much more quickly? So it's just like, oh yeah, we've got some time. We can build an audience. We can do a podcast. We can do a newsletter, whatever. But the fact is where you might have had 2 or 3 competitors before, now you have 300 in a matter of a few years. Is much more difficult, I think.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say to that, because I literally just wrote about it, which is why it sort of struck me as one of the ones that I wanted to talk about, was because as I told you before the show, I did a bit this week. I wrote a post that was a shout out to you, sort of an homage to you.
So nice.
From a 2019 keynote that you gave at Content Marketing World called The 7 Laws of Content Marketing. And I sort of took your 7 laws and didn't rewrite them as much as I updated them. And law number 1, my law number 1 for 2025 and beyond, is related to what we just saw and talked about here, because my law is that stop building what B2B marketers especially need to do is stop building a business case for content marketing as a separate function. Just do it. Just stop building a business. Like, if your leaders don't get it by now, they're not gonna, right? They're just not going to get it. So the new mission for you is to just do content marketing in the traditional marketing processes and campaigns that you just make it a component of everything you're doing, rather than trying to position it as a separate thing. And because, as we've talked about, content marketing in so many ways in B2B has become, marketing has become content marketing, right? Delivering value through great content delivered consistently over different media channels. That is the marketing strategy for B2B these days. Establishing thought leadership, establishing differentiation in your content, delivering value, delivering the ability to engage your audience such that they self-discover that they need and short circuit the sales process that they don't want to go through. That is marketing. And so stop trying to build this separate business case for your blog or for your magazine or for your podcast or for your community as a separate function that will live off, as a different business unit almost. And instead, figure out and just start implementing it. And just, if this is the, 100 brave decisions, is sort of getting it into the implementation of your marketing plan, right? It's just part of it now. So just start doing it, right? Stop asking permission and just start doing it.
Yeah. And by the way, you don't even have to call it anything.
Right. Don't call it content marketing. It's just great content, right? All you're going to do is create great content, great thought leadership, et cetera. When you look at a company, and I mentioned this at my keynote at Content Marketing World last year, right, where I talked about the conscious content marketers and unconscious content marketers. And I referenced, companies like Amazon and Apple, Lego. Like, if you go ask those companies, are you doing content marketing? They'd go, who, what are you talking about?
Yep.
Right? I don't even, they're just like, no, creating great content is just a great business strategy. We just do it as part of our marketing. It's like, okay, great. Don't do that, right? Do it, take all the best practices that you've learned, take all the best practices that you do, and just go do it, right? Just do it as a part of what you do in marketing, instead of trying to carve it out as this separate thing. Because honestly, it's trying to sell it as a separate business case now feels a little frustrating and hard and harder than it needs to be.
Well, the only thing that seems to be getting attention is if you put AI onto it.
Yeah,
from your C-level.
Exactly.
Like if you say AI, if you say AI infused content marketing, it'll be like, whoo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it doubles your valuation for sure.
It's like, wow, you're doing AI infused content marketing. It's like, that's a new soda by Coca-Cola.
Right. Let me get your quick take on one other one, and one other one from this article, because it struck me as interesting here. This one was from the idea of Neil, who talked about collaboration is crucial, breaking down the silos between IT, marketing, and the business units for unified goals. And basically, he's bringing together, I guess, a few common themes that have come through here, which is the idea of sales, marketing, and other key departments need to work together to reach organizational goals. So I'll give you my quick take on this, and I would love yours, which is basically, it's a very similar to the law that I just mentioned, which is, no, you're not gonna break down the silos. You're just not. Just stop trying. Better is to focus on how the silos actually communicate and work with each other. In other words, if you can start building collaboration between the silos and recognize that the silos exist and recognize that they're there, but instead just sort of lean into that and say, great, we have silos. Now, no one can argue that we need better communication between those two. So it's not breaking them down, it's actually building communication systems between them that actually enable us to operate from a single set of standards, from a single set of governance, from a single set of the ways that we do business, from brand, from tones to guidelines and all those sorts of things. So you create institutional standards and guidelines and measurement frameworks, and then use the communications between the silos to sort of facilitate better collaboration, and just recognize that the silos are not going to get broken down, because they're just not.
I love that you said that, because when I read that, and nothing against Neil, but I'm like, come on, we've been talking about that for 50 years. It is not going to happen. What you just said reminded me of the wonderful case study about, I think we covered it years ago, from Xerox, where they were creating all this content for sales and nobody in sales was using it. And marketing's all upset, like whatever. And we were asking questions, and they're like, well, where do you put the content and how do you notify? Well, it's in the intranet.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I said, are any salespeople in the intranet? No. No salespeople are going to the intranet. They never will go to the intranet. I said, well, how do you communicate with them when you really need something? We send them an email. Great. Send them an email every week of critical content that's going to help them hit their goals.
Right.
Done. We just created this. This will help you do. This is how we found it to be useful. Go. And they did that, and it changed everything. And they didn't have, it's like, hey, we're going to have these silos. You're not going to change the behavior of salespeople. So work with what you got.
Yeah.
So
market the marketing. Market the marketing.
Yep. Market the marketing.
Okay. Perfect. Let's move on now to our next one, which we're going to have a quick discussion. Do you want to talk about Substack and the new Instagram, or you want to move on?
No, I think that all we should mention, well, I'll put the link in the show notes, but I think that all we should mention is I've seen over and over a lot of people in our area moving over to Substack.
It's a great tool.
And you know more than I do, but there's sort of a little virality going on. You build these communities, you're starting to see more and more. It's almost like it's become I'm going to go wide with Instagram, and then I'm going to hopefully move that down whatever funnel there is to your Substack, and that's where your community is. And also you get that, the direct selling aspect of email marketing and those things, but you also have a community behind it. Yeah. Yeah,
you can totally do all that. And it's great for monetization if you want to take it there, and a great place to build a foundation for just an email. Like I just use it for our Seventh Bear email newsletter, Lens. And it's just, you get better exposure. It's lovely. It's a nice design. It's so easy to use, and it's got great deliverability. And it's just, you can't ask for much more for the money. Which is basically free if you don't, actually monetize your content. If you do, then they take a percentage, of course, but that's, and I just find it really, really a productive tool.
I used to shy away tell everybody, no, don't do Substack because you can't control this. It's like social media. But then they gave everybody the real easy method to export your
you can export your content,
your names, anything, your content, your 100%. Names, and do those sort of things. So it has that. I mean, if you're going to spend hundreds of dollars on an email provider, like getting started on an email service, email provider, or you go with Substack, I'm almost like, why don't you start on Substack?
Yeah,
and see how it goes, because you might end there too.
And by the way, they just now have introduced integrations with podcasting and with integrations with video. So you can create an entire Substack that is a video series, which is behind the firewall, which you might have. I mean, they got a lot of features. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And they do not pay me to say that. They do not.
Well, especially if you're it's a great point, because if you're just a creator and you need to monetize stuff, you cannot count on the YouTubes and the Instagrams and the TikToks to pay you directly on an impression base. You cannot count on that kind of revenue. You have to sell directly at some point,
especially if you're B2B.
Especially, yeah, because you're working with smaller base.
Yes, that's right.
You're never going to get the impressions that's going to make you any money.
That's right.
So there you go. Good point.
Okay, let's get to our winners and losers, where Joe and I pick a winner from the last week of marketing or a loser from the a loser, big L on your forehead. I just realized I'm looking at myself on camera now, and if I had sunglasses on, I would be like Elon looks in the thing.
It's my God.
Isn't that awful? I just realized that when I was wearing the black sweater and the whole thing is like, oh God.
You kind of got, you got a Johnny. I mean, if you took off the hat, you got the Johnny Cash look going.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. That's very kind of you.
Boy, I'll tell you what, down in Key West, they play a lot of Johnny Cash.
Well, they should. They should.
Yeah. I mean,
they should.
Folsom Prison. I just can't get enough of that song for some reason.
All right. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I have two very quick ones.
I'd be happy to go first.
Why don't you go first with your bars where you've been frequenting a lot?
Okay. So there's a point to this. I think it's a really important point that a lot of content creators and content marketers go get. And I've been doing the work, Robert, because I know that I really want to teach people. So I have to go to as many bars in Key West so that I can get a feel for what they're doing. And basically what I've realized is the best establishments, the most talked about, the most frequented, are the ones that have a very quick positioning statement, elevator pitch, if you will. Super simple, like the Green Parrot. You want the best place for live music. Wonderful. We just came from Blue Heaven for breakfast. You want breakfast with the roosters? You go to Blue Heaven, right? You want to eat, or you want to go drink at the place that Ernest Hemingway hung out? That's Sloppy Joe's. You want to go to the oldest bar? You go to Captain Tony's. On and on. I've realized that the best one, and the ones that don't have a clear positioning statement, they're just, it's another bar. They're going to make it. Bars here make it, but they're not packed. It's not a waiting line. And I think that so many content, even on the B2B side, especially on the B2B side, they don't have that statement. And whether you're a content marketing expert or an AI expert or whatever you think you are, you have to take the next step and say, okay, what's the differentiator? We talked about this whole episode is about differentiation. Like, what do you have to really go to? And we end up going back to the ones, like if you want to watch English Premier League and you want to get berated by the waitstaff, you go to the Celtic Conch. That's where that's what happens there. And I wish that more creators would look at that. Oh yeah, I know that this is what my audience wants. I know this is what my expertise is, but they don't take the next step to say, what's that real quick elevator positioning statement that's going to separate me from everyone else? And I think that's where the secret sauce is.
I love that. I mean, it reminds me very much of a quote that you said to me, oh my gosh, 10 years ago, where it was literally a throwaway line from you. We were going to start a workshop and you said something like, I may get the quote slightly wrong, but you said, nobody starts out wanting to be the 5th best publication in their space. And it's like, but we're often satisfied there. We often get satisfied there that we're the 5th best publication. It's like, you got to find that sweet spot, right? You got to find that differentiation that really elevates you. Whether you ever get there or not isn't the point. The point is that you actually have something that people are clear in people's mind, and that actually really differentiates you, because it's the only chance that you're going to have to get to that number one slot.
It's worthwhile whether you do a survey or you talk to, God help us if we did reader calls, to really figure out the why. Like why
Right.
why do people pay attention? Why do people listen to your podcast? Why
Right.
do people open your newsletter? Like get the feedback however you can. Set up those listening posts so you can figure out and know when somebody says, "What do you do? What do you create content about?" You can have that elevator statement, and that, of course, to your point, is now your overriding mission.
Yeah.
That's your BHAG, and that's what you're going to strive toward, and that's what all your editorial planning and strategy goes against.
Yeah.
Is more of that and less of flat. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
That's really
Okay.
good stuff. That's really good stuff. Okay, and much more relevant than I actually thought it was going to be. All right, I got two very quick winners this week. And again, I mean, this is my, I guess you should start your own Mar-a-Lago, and then I could just come down and kiss the ring of Joe Pulizzi every now and again, because I'm going to give you another shout out here.
Oh my God!
In our predictions episode, you said something. I love this prediction so much. You said you saw in coming down the road in 2025 a return to nostalgia, right? A nostalgic content. And Levi's just launched a new campaign, and it's an amazing campaign because it features Beyonce, and it's the very first chapter of this new campaign that they're launching, which is they're calling it their Reimagine campaign, which is going to reinterpret several of the iconic Levi's ads from the last, call it 30 years, and they are basically changing it up to be with modern people. And the first one is sort of this. There was a wonderful Levi's commercial called The Laundrette back in the 90s, I think it was 1985 to be specific. And basically, there's Beyonce. They have Beyonce basically sort of reenacting that commercial, but now it's Beyonce instead of the person that it was before. And then they've released another one, which was another iconic commercial, which was in a pool hall of people playing pool, and it's Beyonce doing that as well with bending over the pool table and their Levi's and all that kind of stuff. And it's the exact same commercial pretty much creatively, but it's the new people, and it's just a really lovely shout out and a nostalgia back to the old commercials. And I just thought I'd mention it as a big winner here, because I think it's great.
That makes a lot of sense too, by the way, because it's really good content. It's also safe.
Yes, exactly.
And safe is in right now. People are concerned. So
exactly. And then sort of on the flip side of that, I wanted to shout out to UTC, United Talent Agency. They have announced this week that they are further building out their entertainment marketing division. They had started by pulling in sort of big celebrities and those sorts of things to create branded content. They have a whole division now creating branded content and content that is meant to sort of bring in the influencers of celebrity into marketing and shows and all those kinds of things. They did a show for Lyft. They did sort of a sort series of films for other brands. And they have now pulled in this and sort of expanded it to, or start to include YouTube creators, influencers that are not necessarily celebrities. And they're building a whole division around this that is going to offer up marketing strategy around influencers, marketing strategy around bringing celebrities in with those creators to start to create original content for YouTube and for other elements of film and television, and bringing that all together. And here we go. This is Los Angeles classic talent agencies now starting to encroach, not starting, basically continuing to encroach and expand into the traditional agency world. And it's, they're a winner this week in my mind, because I think they have every, as we get more and more and more into this, surfacing the individual, surfacing people over content, right? The people who create the content are becoming the brand. People are the brand now, not the brand. that is just going to become more important. And I think they're poised for huge growth with this strategy. And I think it's a big winner. So
interesting.
Yeah,
that's so interesting. It is funny. And when you look at the highlights in the news, when you're seeing people launch things, it used to be companies launch this company just launched. Now you almost see well-known individuals. This person launched this. Ryan Reynolds does this. Like,
exactly.
It's really a big change. That did not happen 10 years ago. It was always a company. Now it's always an individual. So-and-so just got funded $40 million to do this thing. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
No, it's exactly. Somebody, I was seeing a post on LinkedIn that tagged both of us around content marketing. And the question was basically, is content dying? And my response, which I haven't typed in yet to the response, is that no, content may be, on life support or something like that. I don't know what the right metaphor is, but creators are not. Creators are becoming the new content, right? Creators are the new content. So it's
mixed content and the personality of the individual. That's where your regular how-to posts can't compete. Yeah, it's very hard for a company to say, here's 5 reasons to do this versus an individual with a personality and a following saying something similar.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
It's like who was it? Don Schultz, when you and I got the very distinct pleasure of interviewing Don Schultz for the documentary, right? And what did he say? He said, people can imitate what you do, but they can't imitate the way you say it or what you say.
You say.
And now he might change that, and we might change it to say people can imitate what you say, but they can't imitate you saying it, right? And so that's the difference, is bringing you to the saying. Is the important piece.
By the way, that's the Story of Content documentary. It's still available on YouTube. Check it out. It's got I don't know how many downloads it's had, but it was one of the better things we've done. I think I love that documentary.
Yeah, fantastic.
And you're in it a lot. You're in it way more than I am.
I am.
You're in it way more than I am. I was very upset at the producer. I don't know why they did that. You had way too much airtime.
I have so many jokes there, but I'm not going there because we're going to get to our rants and raves when Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave over something that has made us real mad, or something that has basically made us feel super happy. And boy, do we need happy things now. Unfortunately, I have 2 rants these days. But what do you got? You got some commentary, I hear.
I have commentary. I need your help with this one because I haven't been in the know on the news lately, but I just saw this article came past as I was doing research for this very fine show that we're on, and talked about how there's been a big shakeup at MSNBC. And from what you were telling me and from what I read, a lot of people are upset about certain firings. People were let go. But the one thing I thought was interesting, this is not a rant or a rave, but it's just piques my interest. It seems to be that if you were saying, okay, what is MSNBC's mission? And they are definitely on left of center and have been left of center for a long time. But it looks like within the people that they have now brought in, they're going even further left. Further liberal, further progressive, or whatever you want to say. And I thought that was an interesting move. And it might be, I don't know about the people, and you know more about this, and it seems like there's some real soap opera stuff going on over there. But I'm wondering, in this environment, if you look at all the different players and you're trying to get attention, it probably does make sense for MSNBC not to go toward the center, but to go further and further left in order to gain market share. If that's your goal, which I'm sure, which I know it is, because they want to sell ads and they want to make money. So that's kind of my take with it. You might have a take on that too, because you've heard some things.
The only thing I've been following is over the last week is that the big drama, of course, is that they fired Joy Reid, who had a show on MSNBC, and then the other person that they fired was also a person of color. So it's and a woman, by the way. So both women of color, and so it's just not a good look.
Not a good look at all. Yeah.
For the organization. Rachel Maddow actually went on her show and did quite the, it was excoriating the network for basically making really bad decisions, and basically making people, because it wasn't just on-air talent. It was also, producers, behind the scenes people who are all very much in fear for their jobs, and then they can apply for new jobs and all that sort of thing. And it's sort of, they're just not doing it in a very, I guess, good way, and I don't good, skilled way, clever way. I think they're not handling themselves well in terms of the way that they make this fundamental shift, which every mainstream media outlet is doing right now. From CNN, they're really losing a lot of on-air talent. Fox News has lost a lot of on-air talent. The business of news, the broadcast business of news is just it's a dying business, right? It's because, and it's much of it has to do with this idea that we've just been talking about, right? The rise of people more than the rise of brands, right? People are listening to people, not news brands. And so that is, the CBS just changed the entire way that they do their news anchor desk. Nora O'Donnell left, and now they've replaced it with two white guys. And it's like, it's a fascinating time for broadcast news that has devolved, I would argue, into not really news, but rather just op-ed commentary, right? It's not what happened, it's what we think about what happened. And so you get these polarizing effects of the mainstream news moving left and right. And that's happening on newspapers. It's happening on TV networks. It's happening everywhere. Even with my rant on
yeah,
Bezos,
maybe you should go into your rant, because it sounds like Bezos killed his opinion columnist for
so 2 years
Washington
ago,
Post.
2 years ago, Bezos was on stage, 3 years ago. No, 2018, right? Time flies. He was on stage right after he had purchased the Washington Post. And it had been some time. And somebody asked him and said, "Hey, listen, would you ever put your thumb on the scale, or would you ever come in?" And he giggled and he said, "I would be," quote, I'll get this quote semi wrong, but basically he said, "I would be completely red-faced. I would be completely embarrassed to ever do something like that. I'm just going to leave the news alone. We've got great editors," and that sort of thing. And this week, ostensibly, Bezos said, no, we're going to change our op-ed, and our opinions on free speech and free markets are going to be my opinions on this, and that's the way it's going to be. And the senior editor of the opinion section of the Washington Post has now resigned over this. And it's just yet another indication that you've got big tech billionaire with their thumbs on the scales of what they consider free speech and what they consider the idea of editorial control. And it's just so ironic that Bezos is the one to do this. And, you can see why he's doing it.
Because he can.
Because he can.
And today there's no blowback.
Yeah, there's no blowback.
Or minimal.
Yep. And he may or may not earnestly believe what he's talking about, but honestly, it's such a play in the favor of moving the polarization of media and journalism that it's a sad thing for me. Anyway, so that's
the more important thing though with Bezos is he's jacked. I mean, he's seen him lately. Woof. He's really working out. He's got some quality gym time.
He's definitely
that's what's important.
He's definitely got the biceps. Yeah, he's definitely got the guns to show for it. Yeah. Okay.
All right, you have another rant?
I have, which is a little more even ranty, if I may. Okay. So this is the story out of this. So week before last, X made the news. Twitter made the news because they were going out to. We talked about this on the show before the end of the year, where X was starting to threaten, with lawsuits, advertisers who weren't advertising on X, and we kind of laughed at the time, and we went, "How silly! They're actually going to sue people for not advertising on the platform. What a ridiculous thought that might be." And we sort of let it go, right? Well, it came back about a week and a half ago with Linda Yaccarino, who we've also talked about on this show. Actually, them and their team and legal teams going out to brands and saying, "Well, here's the thing. We may not sue you, but you literally like the shakedown that a restaurant owner might get. It would be a real shame if, the government came in and shut you down, or the government would have come in and basically put some regulatory pressure on you for your merger, Omnicom and WPP and all of the big agencies. it'd be a real shame if things started to happen in a bad way for you if you don't advertise with X, if you don't get your clients to advertise with X, which is just awful in its own right and didn't get a lot of coverage with everything else going on in the world. But now, interestingly, and this is what I want to rant about, was because it's still continuing. So the article that we'll link to comes from Digiday, and the headline there is basically, Forrester is now, the analyst firm, has now come out with a recommendation for how advertisers on how to deal with X in light of these recent sort of negotiation tactics, if I may be so bold as to call them that. And so Forrester has now come out, and people actually have, many of in the audience know sort of my feelings overall on Forrester as sort of a marketing and their marketing practice and what they do there. But basically they came out on Tuesday, this week Tuesday, and issued guidance to its clients on how advertisers ought to handle the pressure being exerted by X. In a blog post by analysts Jay Patisol and Kelsey Chickering titled Extortion, How Advertisers Are Losing Control of Media Choice, the analysts recommended 3 steps that advertisers should take to maintain as much control as they can in this situation. And basically they said, lean into non-binding agreements with X. In other words, just say, oh, sure, that's fine. You should do that. We'll advertise on your platform. Explore principal media solutions for X upfront deals. I don't even know what that means. Require X to meet media performance thresholds. Well, okay, we already do, because that's what we pay for. That is the product that we pay for, is to require them to meet media performance thresholds. As you know, otherwise you get make goods or anything like that when you put an advertising deal like that together. I have a piece of advice that I would like to give, which is just don't do it. I mean, it's should
have been a very short blog. Yes,
mine would be a very short blog, which is don't negotiate with terrorists. Which is I absolutely fundamentally believe this. This is not political. This is absolutely about marketing strategy and performance. That it is absolutely insane that a private company that is an advertising-based company is threatening other advertisers with government action if they don't advertise on the platform, and how these agencies aren't banding together, how these brand that are under these agencies and using these agencies to buy the media aren't banding together in some way to start to say, this is effing ridiculous and we're not going to do it and we're not going to kowtow to any of this, is baffling to me. It is just, and I'm so disassociated from X and anything with advertising there that I haven't really even been paying attention to what the performance of advertising is these days. But so it doesn't matter to me ultimately what the performance is, because ultimately, if you come to me and say, I'm threatening you with government action unless you pay me to advertise on my platform, is just as un-American as it possibly gets. And so I can't believe Forrester is coming out and basically saying, hey, just play nice with the bully, play nice with the bully, and we'll let it go. It's okay. It'd be a real shame if things are going to go down south. And this is the
oh my God, that's so funny.
Forrester coming in and going, hey, just play nice. He's a nice guy. Just play nice with him. Anyway, I get off on a rant on that. So that's my rant.
Did you see, related, did you see that Elon and X is looking for more money and they valued Twitter at the exact $44 billion? Of course.
Yep. And here's the effed up thing. I think they're going to get it.
I think he's going to get it. I think he's absolutely going to get it because people
proximity to the president is exactly why he's going to get it.
I have not, these are times I have not seen before.
Unprecedented times, I think they call it, Joe.
Unprecedented times. Yes. It's every day is unprecedented.
Yeah.
So yes. Anyways, all right.
What are
you gonna do this week? I
got good work going on. I got fun client work. Doing some writing some long form pieces. I'm in the midst of 3 white papers at the moment, so I'm busy with a lot of writing, and all of that. And so just having a good time with clients, basically trying to keep my mind off of everything else, just having a really good time digging in with clients on their marketing strategy.
I think that's probably a good strategy. And so we've got, as we record this, we leave in 2 days back to Cleveland.
Dun, dun, dun.
I am looking forward to seeing some friends and, of course, our kids. But I loved it out here. It was great. It was everything that I thought it would be and more. And we'll probably make a regular visit to Key West whenever we can. So
yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, I'll see you next week in your studio.
That's right. I will. Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, we'll actually, like, on the video, I'll actually be able to, like, show articles and stuff like that.
Yeah,
again, we'll see.
Yeah. All good. All right. Thank you all for putting up with this today. I mean, hopefully it wasn't too much of a ranty show, but and you enjoyed what you did. And we'll see you again, of course, next week with a wonderful news show, another regular news show that we will have for you next week. And until we see you again next week, just remember, everybody, it's your story to tell. You tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing. Hey, thanks a lot for making it this far in this week's episode, and thank you all for being a part of This Old Marketing. You can check out all the show notes of what we talked about today at thisoldmarketing.com, and it's also where you can leave us a review or a voicemail. We need those reviews and comments on whichever platform you follow us on. And if you haven't followed the podcast, please go do that and make sure you catch the latest and greatest episodes every Friday morning. We're on Apple and Spotify and all your other favorite podcatchers, of course, but we'd love it if you went over and subscribed to us on YouTube. That's right, YouTube. youtube.com/@thisoldmarketing. We'll see you again next week, folks, with another episode of This Old Marketing.